Thanks for coming in today, John.
Pleasure, Ray.
It's been a couple of years since the last album, and you've been busy touring Australia, as usual, looking for songs. This time I hear you went all the way to Cape York with someone called Darcy.
Well, Darcy Gallup was our guide, really. I met him at Laura Folk Festival north of Cairns. Well, he was the state government overseer of the show, and he had a tent, and he set up the donkey shower for us, and I got to know him then. He said, mate, you want to write some songs about Cape York? Anytime you want to come up, let me know. He said, I'd love to show you around, and which he did, of course.
Now, Frangipani Bay is up near the tip of the Cape. What prompted that song?
Frangipani Bay, well, I looked at a map just north of Cairns, and I looked at a very local map. Frangipani Bay wasn't mentioned on the larger maps, but a very local map pointed out that was the name of the little bay right next to the tip of our country. So I thought it was romantic to think that we're heading towards Frangipani Bay, and so that's how I got that title.
How many of you were on the trip?
Well, there were 6 of us, 3 couples basically. There was Mary Kay and myself, Runt and Sher Price, which is actually Steve Price and Sherry Price, and Darcy Gallup and Jackie Sykes. And I was, when Darcy left us, I was always the guinea pig to go through somewhere first. So if anyone got bogged, I would, and Runt would go, ha, 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 you got bogged. He hasn't had a go at it, of course, so then he knows the better spot to go because I've already tested the bad one.
And I hear that you filmed part of the trip.
Well, Jackie Sykes, who was with Darcy, she is an independent documentary producer. I created Frangipani Bay really for Jackie, I thought I'll write a song as we go, and because it's nice to do that on film, of course. So I'm pleased that it worked out.
So you wrote this song specifically to go with the documentary?
Once I got the title Frangipani Bay, I knew I would just come up with a song just generally about heading up there, making sure that everything was holding together and really painting a rosy picture, I guess, of what it was going to be like, not knowing that it was going to be fairly rough, especially for Mary Kay. She didn't enjoy the rough roads all that much. Different when you're holding onto the steering wheel, I think, and knowing where you're going to go next. So I thought it'd be good to have a romantic travelling song for the video. Frangipani Bay was really about what I was expecting, rather than what I actually knew. But of course, there's a little bit there. It says the carpenter bird. That's true. It's actually a long-tailed nightjar, apparently, that makes that noise, and it just sounds like someone hammering on a tin roof of a shed or something, putting nails in a tin roof in the distance, and it happens just on Piccadilly dawn, as they say. Hear this little bang, 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 bang. It's just like it starts the nail, goes bick, 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 bang, 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 bang. It's like someone whacking a nails. So I asked Darcy, what the hell is that? And he said, that's the carpenter bird. And I thought, well, there you go. I would have called it that myself.
So the other trip that you got songs from was to the Snowy Mountains in New South Wales. And I believe you came across a few more great bush characters. Which one stood out the most?
Bruce, the old dingo trapper. I just sat in his ute as he drove me around the place. There's nothing like a bushman's knowledge of the country, and they'll tell you things that a naturalist or a conservationist would never know, you know what I mean? It's something about a bushman who knows all about the bush. He knows what trees, what you can do with the timber, what posts you can put in the ground that the white ants aren't going to eat, and all those little things that are very local knowledge. So good bushmen really are the protectors of our country in all sorts of ways,
Tell us about Mighty Big River.
I visited some people around the Snowy River, and I guess I'm as proud of the people that put together the dam and everything at Jindabyne as anybody else. But I think people up there now realise that they shouldn't have squeezed all the water out, even though I say we should have left the Snowy River alone altogether. I guess I'm exaggerating a little bit, but at the moment there's only 1% of the original water going down the Snowy, and it's coming out of a pipe around about the size of a basketball. So I think we don't want to lose the Snowy. I mean, it's really a joke now. To think of the Snowy River and in Banjo Patterson's song and that, you think of this magnificent, big, powerful river. Well, it's not, and it should at least have part of its grandeur back, I think. And it seems like people are generally keen to make that happen now, who aren't relying on the water, I guess.
This new album, Gunyah, is dedicated to your brother Robin. Are you comfortable to talk about the reason for that?
Yeah. Well, I would say Robin, out of my 4 young brothers, was probably the biggest fan of her music, and we got on really well. I love them all, of course, but Whenever I went down anywhere near northern Victoria, he'd come to my show, and he just had this wonderful houseboat on the Murray River, and he lived on a house on the banks of the Murray River. But he and his mate built a houseboat, and back in 1999 he discovered a lump under his arm and didn't take much notice of it. It was a bit of a shock when we all found out it was in fact a cancer about the size of a tennis ball, and it was just too late. And during that 6 months, he didn't want any of us feeling sad for him. He's always a positive sort of a fella, and he had a great orchard, and a great family man. He was actually working at a recycled timber place that used huge Murray River gums, old dead ones. They cut them up and make huge tables and stuff, and he was a foreman there. And I think he dropped a bit of timber on his finger, and that's why he thought he had a lump on his arm, just a swollen gland, But anyway, I went on the river with him a couple of times, and I guess it got to me how he must have known. He just refused to let it get to him, but it must have been times when he thought, well, this is the last time I'm going to see my family, and I just can't imagine what that'd be like, but I tried to put it in a song. I'm really pleased for him, even though he's not with us, that I've dedicated this album. And I know his family, his wife Debbie and his 3 kids would be very proud of it too. So Salisbury Street, which is the name of the second street that we were actually had a house in Quambatook in the Mallee, in the little town. Our first house, Robin wouldn't remember because it was mainly the older 2 that would remember the first house. It was on Kerrang Road, but that doesn't sound anything like Salisbury Street. So Salisbury Street was where we had the house where all the 5 boys would have been brought up, so obviously at sad times you go back to thinking about the early days when we were all kids,
Buried in a Bedclothes. This was about a lady you and Mary Kay met on a train?
We were on the Indian Pacific. We were heading from Perth to Sydney. I think we were in the dining car, just been over the Nullarbor. And at the dining car you share the table with different people, and this lovely lady full of life sat down next to us and said, "Do you mind?" No problems at all. And we'd noticed her flitting from table to table over different lunchtimes and thinking what a great time she was having, So it was a bit of a surprise when she revealed to us that it was only 6 months before that she'd lost her 87-year-old husband, and she nursed him for years, and she was really, really sad and depressed when he finally died. And she said she didn't get out of bed for 3 months, something like that. And so her family talked her into going on to that trip she always wanted to do. And she'd been all the way to Perth and halfway back when we met her, and obviously during that period the train had done the job.
Buried in a Bedclothes has been in the set for a year or more. You tend to introduce songs in concert well before you record them, don't you?
I try to road test my songs, but I don't get the chance to do all of them because as a recording session or a time to come to record comes, there are songs that do sneak in without being tested, but certainly Buried in a Bedclothes has been well road tested, and it's good to have at least the essence of an album tested on the road.
Devil's Boots. What prompted you to revisit Ned Kelly?
I'd just been sent a book by John Laws. It was Peter Carey's The True History of the Kelly Gang. It's a weird title for something that's not all necessarily true, but I think he's joined up the unknown life of Ned really romantically and well. It fits the myth, even if it's not necessarily 100% true. And I think a myth in Australia of Ned is a good one. It's like Robin Hood or whatever for England. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. And the more you get into the true life of Ned anyway, the real true life, he was a character who I think would have been a very brave Anzac if he'd been born a bit later on in the century. Anyway, Lawsy sent me this book. I'd often supported the story of Ned, and Lawsy didn't. He was more on the side of, that he was just a mongrel thief and that's all there was to it. And but there was Peter Carey's book that he actually wrote in the front of it. He said, "I'm converted." So I made sure Peter Carey knew that too. And I guess, I don't know how many thousands, hundreds of thousands are sold, but there's people all over the world are obviously converted to the story now. They'll make a movie out of it. I've never really sat down and tried to write a song about Ned before. I've always thought, oh, well, everyone else has done. I've mentioned Ned in The Flag of Our Own, but not really a song about him. And I started to think about it. It was just that Harry Power in Peter Carey's story, who was an old bushranger and also a companion of Ned's mother, who was a widow, of course. And, obviously became a bit of an uncle to Ned. So when he offered Ned a brand new pair of boots, and Ned didn't even have boots, they were all barefooted, he was tempted to come with him just by offering a pair of beautiful new boots, and I guess he would have been offered a fine horse and all the rest of it. So next thing he knows, he's holding onto a horse while Harry Power's pulling up a coach, and everybody knows everybody in the bush, so that's young Ned Kelly over there holding that horse. So rumour would soon spread, and he was into it. So my song is really about how he didn't really want to get into all this, but as time went on, of course, he got more angry with the squatters and the cops, who were obviously very much orientated towards what the landed gentry wanted. And of course, a lot of the cops were convicts that had been pardoned if they become cops, so some of them are real mongrels, And the settlers really were given next to nothing to make a living out of, and there was a lot of things going against the Irish. And anyway, rather than sing as Ned being the big hero and the big tough man, I've tried to write a song that portrays maybe how he would have really been if he was sitting by himself talking to the Lord up in the high country in Victoria.
You've used an Aboriginal word for the album's title. What does Gunyah mean?
Well, it's in the Macquarie Dictionary, I'm pleased to say it. And I don't know what Aboriginal mob it came from originally. It's quite often we generalise in saying this is an Aboriginal word that means something to all Aborigines. But the word Gunyah has been picked up generations ago, I think, and it means Aboriginal bark hut, or a mia mia, which must be another mob's way of saying it. We were introduced by Darcy Gallop to Billy and Dawn Jackson on a property north of Cowan. I don't know, it was 300 or 500 square miles north of Cowan. And I was absolutely taken by the old station house, which was really only a stock camp that had been extended over a generation, or a couple of generations. And it just started off with stringy bark and galvanised iron on the outside, no lining, and it just never changed from that. They just kept adding rooms, no doors, the breeze went straight through, lino on a dirt floor. And it was just painted with silver frost on the inside, or it was painted black by the old stove they got out of some hotel. All sorts of stories came out, but I could see a song coming, and I talking to Billy and Dawn, and they soon realised that I knew a lot about what they were into, being from the land myself. And anyway, I was determined to come back and see them again when we got back. And Billy, who's got all this land, was off driving a crawler for somebody else, which was great, get to know Dawn a bit more. And she was just a very soft lady, and always had the cup of tea and some cake for anybody that sort of wanted to sit around the table, and kids were gathering around, grandkids and so on. I took all that in, and it was after that Dawn was telling me to drop in on our daughter at the Archer River Roadhouse, which is about 100 k's further south. I called in there, and she wasn't that impressed that I'd been to see her mum and dad, Oh, yeah, it's like everyone does that. And I said, look, I'd love to write a song about your mum and that wonderful galvanised house that they've got there. She said, Granny loves a little Gunyah in the gully. Just came out like that, it was a songwriter's dream. And obviously, Dawn used the term Gunyah to describe a humble abode. I can imagine a lot of people from her generation would use that term quite a bit, for a humble home.
Now, I've left Gunyah's opening song to last, Sing You the Outback. What a great love song to the country.
Sing You the Outback is one of those songs that I thought I had to write. It's one of those project songs almost, because it was the year of the Outback, and I thought I won't be the only one. But I'm surprised there aren't that many that have been put out. Maybe everyone thought it was obvious or something. That I thought, well, gee, I've got lots of things I'd like to write about to dedicate to the Outback. So Sing You the Outback is exactly what I'm doing, really. To try and cover all those aspects in one song was quite a task. I wanted to mention my love of the bush and the respect to the Aborigines, the respect to the stockmen that have so-called pioneered the country as well, and a plug for the women who are the toughest of all. But really the main line in the song is that it's just impossible to describe what the Outback means to me. If we didn't have the Outback, I think we'd be different people. I think that's that knowledge of freedom that we've got. If we want to jump in the ute and head off, you can just go for days and days and days, and it's free, and you don't need a passport. And there are many things to see. If you've got any imagination at all and not afraid of being a bit isolated, you're going to discover not only some wonderful things in your country, you're going to discover some things about yourself, I think.